So this video is the first video that I've made using entirely the Sony A7C, and what I wanted to talk about in this video is why I decided to switch to a Sony camera, because for the last 2 or 3 years while I've been making these YouTube videos, the only cameras I have ever used have been Canon cameras. Now Canon do make great gear, whether it's down from your base level, entry level DSLR or mirrorless cameras, or to your professional cinema cameras. They make great gear, but Sony also make great gear as well, and there's a few reasons why I decided to switch to Sony. So in my last video I sold all my Canon camera gear that I had accumulated over the last few years. If you haven't yet seen that video, you can go and check it out, it is linked up there, but watch this one first obviously. Let's talk about why I decided to switch to Sony. So one last thing just before we get into the reasons that I switched, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up, and if you aren't already subscribed, click that little subscribe button down below there and come and be a part of this community, as it really does help out. Thank you. So reason number 1 that I switched to Sony is there are no record limits on the Sony A7C. Now this is an absolute winner. Now when I was recording with my Canon M6 Mark II, I was stuck with a 30-minute record limit, which when you're recording a video like this, for example, where you're going to be sat talking to the camera for quite a while, you do get to that stage where you are getting close to 30 minutes, and then you start rushing your video. You're panicking about what you want to say because you need to fit it in before the camera stops recording, and that is a bit of a pain. With this, I can just carry on talking for as long as I want, knowing that it's not going to stop recording on me, and that is a win-win. And that brings me on to reason number 2. After I'd reached the 30-minute recording limit on my Canon M6 Mark II, very soon after I clicked record again, it would overheat. With the A7C, there is no overheating. Even when recording in 4K for that long, it will not overheat. And that is a massive positive, because you don't want to have to stop recording because you're limited to 30 minutes. And then when you restart, you're very quickly going to run out of time again because your camera is going to overheat. So no overheating on the Sony A7C is just a massive bonus. Number 3 is IBIS, or steady shot as Sony like to call it, and having this in your camera is just incredible. Now I know this isn't a Sony only feature, all other camera manufacturers have their own versions of IBIS. If you're not familiar with IBIS, it stands for inbuilt image stabilization, and it effectively means that the camera sensor itself moves around to take any shakes and wobbles out of your handheld footage, and it works incredibly. Now this isn't the best in the Sony A7C, but it does work, and what is even better is that it records gyro data while you are recording your video, and then you can put it into a piece of software on your computer, and that stabilizes it even more using the data that the sensor has collected, which is just incredible. I've not used it properly yet, but it's something that I'm going to be testing out very soon and possibly making a video on. So if you would like to see a video on that, let me know in the comments below. But IBIS genuinely is incredible, and I would highly recommend it. Any sort of image stabilization for that matter, I would highly recommend, but I would recommend IBIS over digital image stabilization, because you are still getting the full sensor picture. You're not getting any sort of crop on your picture when you are using IBIS. Reason number 4 that I switched to Sony is the 4K is so much nicer than in the Canon cameras. Now I was using the Canon M6 Mark II, and that shoots 4K video, but it is up-resed from I think 3K, so you're actually getting a 3K video up-resed to 4K, whereas the Sony's down-res from 6K. Now it just looks so much more crisper, especially when you view it straight out of camera. It looks incredible, and I would highly recommend the Sony 4K over Canon 4K any day. I absolutely love it. Reason number 5 is autofocus. Now autofocus is one of those things that in cameras has kept on getting better and better and better for years, and now I don't really think there is a camera with bad autofocus. Every camera is pretty good at autofocusing. For a long time, Canon with their dual pixel autofocus system led the way with autofocusing, and it was hard to find a camera that could keep up with Canon's autofocusing. Now Sony's I think it's even better than Canon's autofocusing. It is genuinely incredible. Right now I can see on the little flip out screen of my A7C there is a little white box surrounding my eye, and if I move around it is not losing track of me at all. No matter where I go, it is constantly stuck on my eye. I can just rely on it and not have to worry about anything. I know that whatever I'm trying to focus on is always going to be in focus, especially when you are shooting something like this. I don't have to worry about autofocusing at all. I can just sit back and focus on recording the video. And that links in with reason number 6 that I switched to Sony as well, because the next reason is autofocus in 120 frames a second. And this is massive for me because my Canon M6 Mark II recorded 120 frames a second, but it didn't have autofocus. You had to focus it manually using the manual focus rings on your lens. And that works. It does work. You can get some really good footage, but when you're just trying to create YouTube videos, it can be a little bit of a faff. Now I've got autofocus at 120 frames a second. That is just incredible, and I can't wait to start using it more and just making incredible footage. That being said, I'm not going to overdo 120 frames a second because that is very easily done, and then everything just looks a bit stupid because it's all in slow motion. But being able to shoot autofocus in 120 frames a second, I cannot wait to start using that. That's one of the things I'm most looking forward to about using this camera. And finally, reason number 7 is picture profiles. When it comes to Sony, there are loads of picture profiles you can choose from, and they all work incredibly. I'm still messing around with some. I'm filming this video right now in S-Log 2, and hopefully it looks okay. I've not yet figured out how to edit a log profile properly, but I'm getting there. Slowly they will start to look better. I'm hoping that that's the case anyway. Picture profiles, massive bonus of using a Sony camera. Yes, you get them in Canon cameras, but if you want to shoot log, you have to go to a really high-end camera, whereas the Sonys, this is a base level full frame camera. You are getting all of those picture profiles that you get in the high-end cameras, whether it's S-Log, Cine, HLG. I don't really know all about them yet, but that's something I cannot wait to learn and know when to use different picture profiles, and hopefully they'll help make my videos look a lot better in the future as well. So picture profiles, again, big bonus. Now obviously, for as many positives as there are for me switching to Sony, there are downsides as well. For example, the menu system on the Sonys is, especially the Sony A7C, A7 III, it's not great. It does what it's there to do. You can work your way around it, but it takes quite a bit of learning. There is a new menu system on the Sony A7S III, but that is only for that camera and above, I believe. So it's a bit of a shame that it's not on the A7C, but again, a menu is a menu. It does what it does, it works. The other thing that's taken quite a bit of getting used to is it's not got a fully functioning touchscreen. Now this is something I can't quite get my head around, because it would make using those menus a hell of a lot easier. It would sometimes make autofocusing maybe a little bit easier. I've not quite figured out what you can touch and can't touch on the screen yet, but for flicking through menus you can't touch the screen, which I just find that a little bit backwards, because you're having to press buttons up and down and flick through manually, which is a little bit strange, especially when on base level cameras, like with Canon for example, you've got fully functioning touchscreen displays. The final downside of switching to Sony is a lot of the lenses are incredibly expensive, and when I say expensive, I mean mind-bogglingly expensive. For example, the Sony 16-35 f2.8 Jazzmaster lens is over $2,000. That is just ridiculous money for a lens. It's so expensive, and a lot of the lenses are like that with Sony. That being said, you can find some incredible lenses for Sony. I'm using a Tamron for example, and that is less than half the price of the Jazzmaster lens, and it does a great job. So there are lenses out there, but a lot of them are very overpriced. However, that is just my view. just so you're aware. That being said though, I'm so glad I switched to a Sony camera. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time now, and you're never going to get a perfect camera. There is always going to be things you are going to be compromising on, and for me, I'm making less compromises with this than I was with my APS-C sensor Canon cameras, because that had an M mount on it, for example, and I had to adapt different lenses to it because there aren't many M mount lenses, so that's not great. They don't work the same. But being able to use native lenses like this, incredible. I know you can do that with Canon obviously, but I didn't have the system to be able to do that, so that was a bit of a downside and one reason why I switched to Sony. So that is most of the reasons why I decided to switch from Canon to Sony, and a few of the downsides as well of switching to Sony. So hopefully that has helped you out if you are thinking of doing the same. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe, and I shall see you all in another video.